Walaikum salam.
Hello, Islam.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the legal show with me, Ajaz Ali. It's been a year since I was on here, but it's nice to be back. I know it's the last one of Ramadan, but I believe we've had one or two other people presenting prior to me. But I'm glad to be back. Today's show, we are focusing on landlord and tenant, and also tax. And the my memory goes. Anyhow, we'll come across it when we get to it. I have two guests with me. I have a guest that's been with me last year and I think the year prior as well. Salman. Salman, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. That's right.
So-
Good to have. Good to be on again.
It's good to have you, and thank you for stepping in. I'll be quite honest. Thank you for stepping in last minute.
Pleasure.
So Salman, your surname is Salman Anwar, yes?
Anwar. Yeah.
Yeah. So Salman Anwar, he runs a tax consultancy. Would you call it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, tax consultancy, and he's an ex HMRC inspector. So when we come on to the tax element, I'm sure he'll have plenty to add to the conversation. Now, the other person we have on the show today is a good friend of mine. It seems like we're always together. Zaid Shah. I'm sure much of the community in Wolverhampton will know Zaid in one form or another. He's been around quite a while. He's been active in the community. He's previously a councillor in I believe, was it Whitmarines?
Yeah, can I show off? The first Muslim council in the history of Wolverhampton.
Assalamu alaikum, Zaid.
Islam.
So yeah, so it's looking to be a good show. We will be having a break for the adhan at I believe it's 18 minutes past, and then we'll come back and we'll have a half an hour straight after that as well. Now, shall we get right into it, Salman? First of all, a bit about your background, if you don't mind. I'm going to go into today's questions, but let's know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, no. Firstly, assalamu alaikum to everyone, to all the listeners, and jazakallah khair as well for having me on again. So I'm an ex-HMRC tax inspector. Used to work in the large business and fraud investigation service many years ago. Left back in 2018 and joined a large accountancy firm, and then subsequently worked on another one a few years after that. Then back in 2024, decided to set up adult tax or ADL tax, whichever way people are comfortable saying it. And that's pretty much me. So my specialism, my day job is to help people with their taxes, and in particular if they have any issues with HMRC, to resolve them.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'll jump right into it. So I'll start with you, Salman. So if, as I said, landlord and tenant. So if you are a landlord in Birmingham, Wolverhampton, or anywhere right now, what is the one thing that you would do this week to prepare for the 1st of May deadline?
I mean, the most important thing is to make sure you're compliant to paperwork, you're ready for the rule changes. So everything's in order. So you've got your deposits, gas safety, stuff like that, all documented. Because with the changes coming in, with the changes to the rental rights bill and so on, it's quite important to be in a good position before that.
Yeah. So I believe the HMRC's new property portal will eventually come about as well, won't it? So right, okay. Zaid, how about you? What would you do?
Yeah, I'd inspect my property for damp and mold.
Okay.
Under AWAB's law, if I've said that properly.
Yeah, well done.
AWAABS law. Councils now have a duty to enforce strict time limits on hazards.
Okay.
If a tenant complains to environmental health,
The council.
we council have to act fast, beat them to it by fixing it now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's going to make a huge difference. There's a lot of properties out there that landlords don't really maintain. They're getting their rent, and that's all they're bothered about. They're not really bothered, what's the condition of the property, or what condition the tenant lives in. And believe me, some of these properties I've been to, I'm thinking, how does someone live in here? So proper squalors. But yeah, so all of these new rules and regulations will in my opinion, all the smaller landlords or the landlords who aren't that bothered, they'll be coming down. The government will be coming down quite harshly with them. The councils will be coming down on them, and they'll either be leaving the market, or they'll have to get the act together. So the Renters' Right Act and possession. So we've got a few topics here. So the first topic is the Renters' Right Act and the aspect of possession. So, Salman, I believe 1st of May, Section 21 is gone. If a landlord is currently in a dispute with a tenant and wants them out, what is the absolute last date that they can? I'm assuming you know this. Not that you're a specialist in landlord tenant, but I'm testing your knowledge here. What's the absolute last date that they can act and still use the old rules?
Yeah, sure. So I'm glad you caveated that with saying I'm not the expert. I'm glad you said that, because I'm not. So obviously, if anything in doubt, speak to an expert. But especially when it comes to disputes, lawyers, and whatnot. You've got one hosting this right now. But look, my understanding, I do deal with a lot of landlords and so on from a tax perspective. So I do try and keep up to date with these sort of things. But so my understanding is that the drop dead date is 30th of April 2026 to serve a notice.
Yeah.
But there's a sort of a trap in the court deadline. You have to issue the claim at court by the 31st of July 2026. Mm-hmm. However, given court backlogs, if you wait until then, you might miss the window. And then you might be forced into the new Section 8 grounds forever. Yeah. So at least that's my high-level understanding. Obviously, if anyone's in doubt,
you've hit the nail right on the head. The date is the 30th of April. And yeah, everyone needs to be aware of that. That's only just over a month away, 5-6 weeks away. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to discuss landlord and tenant in today's show. It's my only show to be during Ramadan, where I believe that we'll have a lot of listeners, and there's a lot of landlords and tenants in the Muslim community. Yes. And I believe it's something that each one of these landlords or tenants would benefit from the knowledge.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're here for, right? To spread knowledge and spread understanding to the community. So, Zaid, moving on to yourself, let's from the council. Because you're an ex-councillor, I'll pretend that you know everything about the council. Right.
I do.
Oh, yeah, you're cocky as well. Right. Right. So, from a council perspective, the new grounds for eviction include intention to sell, which is ground 1A. So, do councils have any power to check if the landlord actually sells it, or if it is just basically an honour system?
Okay, council will be watching this closely. If a landlord evicts using ground 1A, intention to sell, and then relets a property within 12 months instead of selling, the tenant can take them to a tribunal.
Okay.
The council then can also pursue the landlord for a rent repayment order or a fine of up to, you're not going to believe this, £40,000.
Wow. Wow. That's maybe 4 or 5 years of the landlord's rent there.
Absolutely, and the councils have enforcement teams that check these things, especially in high demand areas. So, for example, like Whip Marines in Wolverhampton.
Okay, so that's again, landlords need to be careful. Landlords beware. Clearly, this is one of the reasons I've noticed recently a lot of small landlords leaving the sector. they're trying to get out before they, they get caught out. Now, again, I'll move on back to Salman. I'm going one to the other. So rent can now only be increased, I believe, once a year via the Section 13 notice. Even before, I believe it was a notice. I forget the name of the notice, but similar type of thing. From a tax planning view, Salman, if a landlord wants to minimize or maximize, sorry, if a landlord wants to maximize their income before the MTD kicks in, should they try and push a rent increase through now, or should they wait?
Yeah, no, great question. So first and foremost, MTD is making tax digital, and
yes, that's what it was.
And we're talking about the income tax version of it, because the VAT version came in a few years ago. The income tax version it's the HMRC says it itself, it's the biggest shake-up of the personal tax system for the self-employed since self-assessment was introduced in the late 90s. So obviously we'll come on to that in a bit more detail, I'm sure, a bit further down the line in terms of what that does entail. But if you are going to look at increasing rents and so on now, you just have to be mindful of how that might impact you from any obligations in respect of having to register and subsequently submit quarterly returns for MTDIT from April 26 or the next tax year or a bit further down the line. So it's something that should be thought through carefully. And, then obviously the wider impact in terms of if a tenant does, dispute this or challenge it, and then you get stuck into some sort of tribunal process, and you have to be mindful of that. But look, most important thing when it comes to the taxes is obviously if you're going to increase your income, more than likely you're going to increase your tax bill.
Yeah.
So you have to think that through before you go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned before, you were an inspector in HMRC. So MTD, which starts in April, if a landlord's earning over 50 grand, say it's for a landlord that earn over 50 grand. If a landlord's only 45 grand and thinks they're safe, should they just ignore MTD now, or should they, what's the situation there?
I mean, no, I don't think anybody who's self-employed. So just to be completely clear, MTD for income tax is for people who are self-employed. So this doesn't apply if you have a company. So if you operate with a corporate structure, this doesn't apply to you.
Okay.
But if you submit a self-assessment return, you're in a partnership, you operate in a self-employed way, whether you're a landlord, self-employed in any other trade or anything of that note. If you submit a self-assessment tax return, you are within the scope of making tax digital for income tax. Now, first batch of people who need to be within it are going to kind of come into the fore from the 6th of April 2026.
Yeah.
And their in qualifying income, effectively their turnover, has to be above £50,000 for the 24-25 tax year. Now, obviously, look, if it's lower than that, that doesn't mean you're not in MTD. You might just be in MTD 2 years down the line. So for example, the threshold goes down to £30,000 for coming into it for the 27 tax year. So 6th of April 2027.
So they're easing us in and then making us aware that, look, now it's for people who are earning a bit more, but soon as another year, we'll be chasing you if you're earning slightly less as well. Yeah,
and down the line, the government's actually set out plans to lower the threshold all the way down to £20,000 for the 26-27 tax year. So if and they haven't stipulated when the effective date for registration would be, but for the 26-27 tax year, if your turnover is, your qualifying income is £20,000 or more, you will be within MTD eventually, most likely from the 6th of April 2028 or thereafter. So there's not a long time to go. So you need to start preparing now.
Okay. That seems scary, really.
Yeah, I
Because
mean, should we quickly talk about what MTD actually means? I mean, I know we've got a
yeah,
break coming up for Azan. If I can just quickly cover for people who might be
sure.
wondering
What
what
as I
it's
said, we've
all
got
about.
yeah, we've got break coming up in 3 minutes. But yeah,
Yeah. So look, making tax digital for income tax is basically a way for HMRC to get people to file quarterly income tax. I mean, be careful not to call it returns, but basically they are returns, like people would do for VAT.
yeah.
So the first quarter is from April to April, May, June, and so on. So you have 4 quarters in the year. You have to maintain your records digitally, so you should use an accounting software to do so. You need to, and it has to be a recognized software with HMRC. So loads of software companies out there have been developing solutions. You need to submit the quarterly return, so you need to maintain your records digitally, do your bookkeeping on the software, and submit quarterly returns, or they call it updates actually. And then, like now, before the 31st of January, following the end of the tax year, you have to submit your actual tax return. So HMRC is going to be getting data live from all of the people that are going to start to fall within MTD, income tax, from these kind of measures. So, the key thing is know your start date. When if you're currently in the last, if it's £50,000 or more current turnover, then you need to start thinking about it from less than a month ago. You need to pick the right software, and you need to get signed up with HMRC. So that, in a nutshell, is what making tax digital for income tax is.
Okay. I'm thinking whether to carry on or whether to with the next question, or whether to wait now for the break.
Can I ask a question while
Yeah, sure.
this making tax
Tax digital.
digital?
Yes.
You talked about sort of software. Do the government have do HMRC have some software for landlords, which is something that's free?
So the short answer is no. They don't have their own software that you can use, but all of the software that all of these other companies and banks and others have developed has to be approved by HMRC, and it
Okay,
has
I
to
think
fulfill their
that's what
criteria.
probably my question
I've
was.
been recently looking into all this software and the costs of that, because I don't know whether you guys know, but I'm a little landlord myself, and my family are into this business. Um, right. Okay. We'll carry this on after the break. So there's going to be a break now for the adhan, and I'll see you guys the other side.
Other side.
Other side of the adhan.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the legal show on Iman 1. Um, those who have not listened to the first segment, I am Ajaz Ali and I'm here with this show. I've been doing the show with Radio Ramadan, which was the previous name, the last 5 years or so, I believe, since it started. Um, I'm joined today with Salman Anwar, who is a tax specialist and an ex HMRC HMRC. What do you call yourself? Inspector?
Inspector. Yeah,
Inspector.
inspector.
Whenever I think of inspector, you see, my eldest is in doing his GCSEs now, and I think of inspector calls. So, and inspector calls. And also Zaid Shah, who is an ex-councillor here in Wolverhampton and also a maths teacher and also quite vocal in the community.
Thank you.
I'm not sure whether it's all good or bad, but it's always good to have a voice, and that's definitely one you can't take away from him.
Thank you.
Right. So we were discussing MTD. And landlord and tenant law and all the changes that are coming into effect in the very near future, as of April, to be exact. Salman, I believe, we were discussing the threshold of 50,000 and would later to be then dropped to 30,000 in April 2027. Then. So I'll move on from there because I want to discuss this system that the HMRC have. So there's been a lot of talk about HMRC's Connect system, which, how does it actually catch landlords? And is it just about bank accounts?
No, so Connect is effectively HMRC's enterprise data mining system, if you can call it that.
Sorry to interrupt, but is this the same system that we discussed last year? Is Connect the same thing?
Yeah. It's been evolving. It evolves over time. So now what you have is on top of the Connect system, which I'll explain in a minute, you now have the power of AI to auto-analyze data and so on. But effectively, Connect is a very sophisticated system which connects data or data points across different data sets. So it pulls data from lots of sources. I mean, you're probably looking at tens, if not hundreds of sources that it can pull data from. Things like land registry, tenancy deposit scheme, letting agent returns, data from online platforms like Airbnb, Booking.com, and so on.
Yeah.
So and what it does is it creates a picture of a particular person, a particular house, a particular address, and it starts to connect the dots to say, well, when it comes to landlords, is somebody paying tax, or is someone renting this house, and if it's being rented, and are they paying tax on it? So once it flags a mismatch like that, it would get passed on to, as I understand it, a human being who would then kind of look at that and decide whether that then needs to be taken forward, whether it's part of a one-to-many nudge letter campaign or a more serious investigation needs to be started. But yeah, Connect in a nutshell now with the added kind of layer of AI capabilities connects literally data from different sources.
No, so it's interesting that you mention all of this because you mentioned land registry. Yes, obviously nowadays land registry is on the same government portal as the HMRC and the courts and everything. It's all on the same portal. So I believe in the back end, the information is all shared between those government institutions. But then tenancy deposit scheme, I never thought of that. So there's landlords out there. I know they try to save on tax and try to I don't know whatever their mindset is, but trying to not tell the whole truth. Now, but if there is a deposit and the deposit in the scheme, the HMRC's got access to it, access to the information. So if they're not then declaring it, or if the agent is declaring his and then they're not declaring it, it's they'll get caught out sooner or later. They'll get caught out.
Yeah.
And it's getting harder and harder now, I suppose. So.
Yeah, and that's literally it. So HMRC will compare the data on from those sources, and then have a look at, okay, who owns it? How many properties are they declaring rent for, if at all? Are they even registered for self-assessment? And then with that data clash, which occurs that doesn't require human intervention, as I understand it. Then a data set is prepared of people hitting that criteria. And HMRC has various different campaigns within this whole thing, especially when it comes to landlords, to identify people it wants to, investigate further.
Right. Okay. And that actually, you've kind of partly addressed my next question. So I was about to say that if there's a listener today who feels that they've made a mistake in the past and maybe they didn't declare any or some of their cash rentals, is there a way of them to come clean without going to prison? So
yeah, absolutely. Look, the best course of action. So if anyone's not paid the correct tax, and we were talking about landlords, but it applies in any walk of life. But specifically, when it comes to landlords, there is an avenue to make that disclosure. It's called the Let Property campaign. For people in other walks of life, you can still make a voluntary disclosure. And look, the best course of action, if you've not paid your taxes and you're worried about, when the HMRC is going to find out. So I've got this mantra at the moment. I always try and explain to people that it's not a case of if HMRC is going to find out anymore. It's a case of when.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about what. Yeah. So I would always say to people, look, take the initiative and speak to your accountant, speak to a specialist to try and figure out what's the best course for you. But the Let Property campaign effectively allows you to make a disclosure voluntarily to HMRC. The penalties do get reduced if you make a voluntary disclosure. They can be as low as nothing. But generally speaking, you're looking at 10-15% of the tax due. However, if you wait for HMRC to open an investigation, A, you won't have control over the type of investigation that they will open, and B, because they would have then prompted you into fixing it, the penalties would go higher. Minimum they would be higher is by 10%. Maximum side of it, in certain circumstances, limited circumstances, they can be as high as 100% or more.
Right.
So the key is, if you've got an issue to fix, proactively look at it, take control, and see if you can fix it.
Yeah, don't wait for the letter.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if a landlord does get a letter, nudge letter, as they call it, from HMRC, asking them to sign a certificate of tax position, should they just sign it and send it back, or what's your opinion?
Yeah, so to start with, no, don't sign it. But before kind of, we go down that sort of rabbit hole, the first thing to kind of explain to the listeners is what do we mean when we say nudge letter? So basically, HMRC does not have the resources to investigate everybody it identifies as having some sort of irregularity or as needing to be asked a question about their tax affairs. So what it came up with is, as part of his wider kind of behavioral science-based techniques, is one-to-many campaigns, which we in the profession and even HMRC to an extent calls it nudge letters. So it's effectively a nudge which says it's not an inquiry, but we think you have data, you might need to pay some taxes, can you consider making a disclosure? And invariably, you'll normally get the certificate of tax position, as you touched on it, which effectively gives you, for people with property income and people who fall into those data sets, usually you'll have 4 options to tick, ranging from nothing to declare to I've registered to making a disclosure. Now, there's no statutory requirement for anybody to sign that certificate when HMRC sends it. Therefore, it's not advisable to sign a document you're not required by law to sign, or you're not forced by law to sign. So my recommendation to people, and it's the same, I believe, still the same recommendation by the Chartered Institute of Taxation as well, is to, rather than signing the form, respond in another form, in another manner, or medium back to HMRC, so you could phone them and tell them what the right position is. I wouldn't really advise people to phone HMRC directly, or you can get your accountant or an advisor to write back a letter. Obviously, if a disclosure is needed, then you need to register for a disclosure facility and make the disclosure.
Yeah.
If there's nothing wrong, you can write back simply to say, look, you must have misunderstood. I have nothing to declare. Obviously, the reason for that is if you sign a certificate of tax position, which looks very much like a formal document, and HMRC will treat it like one, if it turns out to be false or incorrect, you could be faced with a allegation of, of a criminal nature for signing a false declaration.
And if I'm not incorrect, this is the type of thing that you assist people with as well, isn't it?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe last year I gave you a hypothetical question, which I was supposed to refer this person to you. I believe I still haven't. No. But a person who who hasn't declared for years, and the person's actually passed away, and the spouse is now in charge of that property. And they've still not, I believe they've still not declared it, and we're nearly a year on since our last conversation. So
I mean, it's interesting you say that, because the amount of people that do actually reach out to me and have that kind of, you touched on it there, spouse is now left with dealing with that mess. Well, I was literally speaking to a gentleman last week who's now signed up as a client who basically reached out without any letters from HMRC at this moment in time. Because he didn't want to leave his wife in that mess.
Yeah.
And he said, look, I want to fix it in my lifetime. I don't want her dealing with it. Can you fix it for me?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, inshallah, we'll try and fix it for you.
Well, it's the right thing to do, isn't it? We're not getting any younger, and who knows where we are tomorrow. So it's better to get all your ducks in a line, so to speak.
100%.
So yeah, I will be sending that person across to you at some point. So let's move on to Zayed, who's been quiet for the last 10 minutes or so. So Zayed, again on a similar type of thing, the council's perspective. So Zayed, you've been a councillor with the new Renters' Right Act, councils are getting more enforcement powers. What type of landlords should be worried then, in your opinion?
Okay, the ones who ignore disrepair under AWAB's law, there are now strict time limits for fixing hazards like damp and mold.
Okay, yeah, I think you've got to think about damp and mold. Well, go on.
Definitely, I have. You can tell from my breathing. If a tenant complains, we have to inspect. If we find a serious hazard, we can issue an improvement notice. Failure to comply can lead to unlimited fines or even a banning order, meaning you can't be a landlord at all anymore.
Oh, really? Councils have that power?
Yes, they do.
Wow. Okay. There's a few people that I know that need to be listening to the show then, in that case, because I know quite a few. Do they used to call them rogue landlords? Right.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah. So many of our listeners are small landlords, I think I mentioned before, and with one or two properties. So are councils going to target them, or just the big rogue landlords, as I just mentioned?
Honestly, we look at complaints, not portfolio size. If a single property landlord has persistent damp issues and ignores them, they'll get the same enforcement action as a large corporate landlord.
Okay.
Also, with the new property portal, councils will have a database of every landlord. It makes enforcement easy across the board.
Also, the council will have all the knowledge in front of them in black and white.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's getting scary, this is.
It is getting scary. Big Brother's watching.
Yeah, it is. But I suppose you can see why they're doing it, and you can see how the quality of the housing stock is likely to improve based on all of this. Just to hope that the tenants that I know they will benefit from this, but some of the reasons some properties are in this condition, I suppose, is because of lack of attention by the tenants. And mold, you say mold. I've been to many properties. Oh, there's mold in the bathroom. Do you open your window? No. Do you put the extractor on? No.
No.
No. Is it self-inflicted? But if you get the council involved, you guys have to come in and say, no, landlord's got to deal with it. So anyway, that's my inner landlord coming out there.
I can sense that. You're getting a bit angry there.
Right.
Wax on, wax off.
So what about the houses in multiple occupation HMOs? So there's many in Birmingham, many in Wolverhampton and Walsall. So are the new rules going to affect them?
Well, HMOs are always a priority because the risks are higher.
Okay.
Fire safety, overcrowding.
Mm-hmm.
Right, these are some of the issues. The new Act enforces that landlords cannot unreasonably refuse pets or discriminate against tenants on benefits, which applies to HMOs too.
Mm.
But the big change is licensing.
Mm-hmm.
If you need an HMO license and don't have one, you can't use Section 8 to evict, and you could face a rent repayment order.
Yeah. This is
getting strict, isn't it?
It is, but this pet element, I've never really been a fan of. Well, I'm not a pet person, and
neither am I. But somebody who is a pet person, this is great for them, isn't it?
Yes, that you can't refuse based on pets. But I'm sure there'll be ways and swings and roundabouts, ways out of it, I suppose. But I'm not in agreement with this particular. If a landlord doesn't want pets in their property, because don't get me wrong, but I've been into properties where it's infested with fleas after the tenants left.
And I was going to just to give you an example of that, which was last week. I went to a place in the Midlands.
Yes.
And there was a tenant who had
cockroaches.
Yeah, couple of dogs in the house, and cockroaches, and the fleas and cockroaches were having a war.
Yeah, having a mare.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. So again, for these type of reasons, I'm not a big fan of this particular change. But it's if it's in the regulations, if it's in the law, then it's got to be abided by. And sometimes. It said also in the I think what you just mentioned that people on benefits, you can't discriminate against people on benefits. I've noticed now, I'm not saying this every person on benefits, but I've noticed people on benefits, quite a few have pets.
Yeah.
And I'd find it hard to understand how they can afford to eat themselves and feed a pet and maintain a pet, maintain their house. It's quite difficult. It's quite difficult for people who are working nowadays, actually.
Yeah.
It's the cost of living. Everyone's talking about it. And now with the petrol prices going up with the war on Iraq, that's not going to get any cheaper. So
no, it's not.
The cost of living is going to get higher.
Well, you've seen that already, haven't you? How long we got left?
We've got plenty of time.
We've got plenty of time. Yeah.
So yeah.
But can I just chuck some kind of a caveat in there? What if we were the pets?
Right.
And the pets were,
Salman, I think he needs a. Do you know any medical professionals? Go on.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Go on. If you were the pets, then what?
Just imagine the pets just took over and they started running the world, and we were the pets, and we couldn't live in the house with, our owners. How would you feel?
Don't worry. If you pray 5 times a day, you're generally in a clean
Okay.
condition.
I'm just putting the.
I don't know where you're going with that, so I'll just move on.
Family Guy.
Right. So the next topic I want to address is the intersection of the legal tax and council, all three involved. So there's a new property portal, as we mentioned, launching this year, which where landlords must register. So no one can get away with it. So Salman, from HMRC's view, is this just a council tool, or will HMRC also use it?
I mean, if it's a government database, then HMRC will have access to it in some way, shape, or form. I mean, all government departments have agreements that allow them to share information with each other, and even the law allows it for law enforcement purposes, and they can go and get the data. So I would say, yeah, I mean, it's going to be an absolute goldmine of data for HMRC, and they're certainly going to be looking to use that to clash against self-assessment and records to see if people have paid their taxes, and then from there, I can imagine they'll be picking people to investigate further, whether that's proper full-on investigations, whether that's nudge letters or anything in between. So yeah, absolutely, I see that as being a goldmine of data.
And Zahid, from the council side?
I think this is great for the councils because from the council perspective, the portal lets us see who owns what. If a property is unlicensed or has compliance issues, we know exactly who to contact. It's going to end days of anonymous landlords hiding behind PO boxes.
Well, okay. I don't think many hide behind PO boxes, but yeah, I see where you're coming from. So with digital record keeping mandatory under the MTD then from April, what's the one record keeping mistake you saw people making all the time then when you were at the HMRC, Salman?
Yeah, I mean, look, the key thing you get is when people are not sort of keeping good records or making mistakes, is you get things like mixing capital and revenue, so things that you can deduct in arriving at your rental profits versus things you can't, and you might be used to claim when you eventually sell a property, personal and business expenses being missed, and so on. So like miscategorization of the type of expense you've got. So under obviously MTD, you'll be required to log those transactions. So you need to connect your bank to the software. So you do need to segregate your bank accounts from personal to the ones you're using for your property business. Otherwise, you're going to have shed loads of transactions in your software that you need to kind of deal with. So if you've got clean bank accounts which are linked to the software, you'll need to then go in and categorize on a semi-regular basis. Say, okay, that's an expense for this is income, and so on. Obviously, if you get it wrong, it would mean that ultimately your taxes could be wrong. However, based on the fact that most people don't currently use systems like that are sort of landlords, hopefully, and so HMRC's view, this will see an improvement in the quality of tax returns eventually submitted. Okay. But obviously, if you get it wrong, then HMRC is going to have that data live for them to be able to look into.
I think we keep on touching the same point that it'll be live data that they'll have access to. It's not easy to get away with things going forward.
I mean, one little technicality just to clarify, Jasmine, is that, and to HMRC's credit, when it initially started off, we were talking about 4 returns plus a return at the end of the year. They have now called these updates, and what they've said is if you get something wrong in one update, correct it in the next one. So the updates will be cumulative throughout the year, and then ultimately at the end of the tax year, you then will have to file your tax return, which should get reviewed and signed off by hopefully your accountant. So you should be able to get a better quality of return into HMRC.
Maybe some landlords may need to change accountants as well to get more accountants, because what people don't understand is, just like every lawyer can't know everything about, all types of law. You can't go to a conveyancer and ask them to go to court with you for a criminal matter. Accountants are specialists. They have they are generalists, but they're specialists, isn't it? So tax specialists are basically that. So I think that's what people need to do, is make sure they have the right type of accountant on their side.
Yep.
So Zaid, so if a tenant complains to the council about disrepair and the landlord fixes it immediately to avoid enforcement, can the tenant still claim compensation or a rent repayment order? Sorry.
Possibly yes. If the disrepair affected the tenant's health or the property wasn't fit for habitation, they can claim damages regardless of whether you fixed it late. The key is the period of disrepair. If you fix it the day after they complain, you might mitigate the council enforcement. But the tenant's right to the tenant's right to claim for the past period remains.
Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. I've just been told that I was told there's a break in 5 minutes, but it's not a break. It is. We're finished in 5 minutes. So.
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. So we've got a young lad who's doing IT at college. Manning the decks for us. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. Right. So. Yeah, sorry. Did you finish your?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. You've got. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'll move on to some. We all see these rapid fire questions on TV nowadays. So, gentlemen, I thought I'll do a few rapid fire questions to you guys. So let's start with Salman. Right, can a landlord still evict family members to move in after the first of May?
I believe the answer is yes, but I think they're required to give 4 months notice, and they cannot re-let the property within the next 12 months.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, well done. And so, do I need MTD software if I earn £25,000 from renting?
Not until probably a couple of years. So for now, the threshold is going to be 50, then it's going to drop to 30. It's supposed to drop down to 20. That's likely to be effective from April 2028. So, but you can obviously volunteer and register earlier if you want to
so
be
you can do it on a voluntary
ahead of
basis.
the curve. Yeah.
I can't see many landlords running to do that, but yes, there is a voluntary scheme then. Right.
Yeah.
So not Salman, sorry, Zahid, let's move to you. So can the council ban a landlord for one bad property?
Yes, a banning order can apply to an individual, not just a portfolio.
Okay. So if there's one bad property, he can just be banned, and the whole portfolio is gone, really. Okay. And Salman, moving back to you, going back to HMRC, really. So is rent received in cash still taxable? Because some people might think not.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just because you receive cash doesn't mean you don't need to pay tax on it. I think people used to obviously thinking about whether HMRC will ever find out or not. Obviously, now the issue you have is with the connection of all of the different data and the Connect system, it gets harder for you to hide those things.
Absolutely.
So Salman, so let's. There's only a couple of minutes left. So, my final question: one piece of advice for a landlord in Wolverhampton, Birmingham, Walsall, listening right now. Salman, you first.
I would say, look, get prepared for making tax digital for income tax. Do it today. We're already quite close to it now, so don't wait any longer. If you're not sure, speak to the right advisors, go do your research, but start to digitize your records, sort out which bank accounts your money goes into, which bank accounts you're spending money from, connect that to the software. The time for having your records in a shoebox or simple spreadsheets and stuff isn't really going to cut it going forward. You need to get ahead of that curve.
Okay, cool. Zahid, for you?
Yeah, inspect your property this week. Look for damp. Check the smoke alarms. Make sure the boiler is serviced. A proactive inspection now can save you from a tenant complaint, a council enforcement notice, and a legal dispute letter. Prevention is always cheaper than defense.
Definitely it is. Right, it's been a great show. We're running out of time now, and Salman, thank you very much for coming online, and Zahid, for you as well.
Thank you.
And everyone listening, this is the last show before Eid. Have a glorious Eid, and with friends and family. If you have anyone that you don't get on with, forget the what's happened, and on Eid, be friends with everyone. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.